Hi Jodi. So welcome to the second episode of Botanic Gardens podcast. So today we have Jodi. So maybe you can do a short introduction about yourself.
Yes, of course. So my name is Jodi Tay. I am a Singaporean designer based in New York. I'm 21 years old, currently a senior at Parsons School of Design. And yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, so I think basically this podcast is about sharing about Singaporean designers and brands. And today we have Jodi from Parsons. So like you mentioned, you're a Singaporean. So could you share a little bit more about how you are being like based in US? So did you like attend primary school or secondary school in Singapore, or what's your relationship in Singapore?
So I'm actually Singaporean, like born and raised. Like my ethnic background, my whole family is from there. And I lived in Singapore until I was about like 5 or 6.
Hmm.
So I never actually did like proper like schooling in Singapore. Um, I moved to the States when I was pretty young because my parents found work in the US, and then I naturally followed them, and we sort of just settled here. And I grew up all along the East Coast of the US from like Boston to Washington, D.C., and now I'm currently based in New York where
Yeah,
I'm
so
studying.
yeah, so I think from the videos we largely know you are based in New York. So we
Mhm.
didn't know like you grew up in like Boston and other parts of like US. So yeah, I think it's like you were too young when you came to US, right? So you didn't have much. You just followed your family to US from Singapore.
Yeah. I'm still like very connected to my Singaporean roots. Like I'm still a citizen and I like go back very frequently. Like I just didn't go to school there. So I
Yeah.
do feel a bit of like a split in that sense.
Yeah, so I think you come to Singapore and you do like thrifting videos and like you show like you went back home, your parents have a place in Singapore and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's see, also when I saw your videos, like, oh my God, is she Singaporean? Like why is she thrifting in Singapore so often? And yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so speaking about growing up, so like did you always knew you were going to the art school route, or like did you take any art classes in like, so I'm not so sure like in US education it's like middle school, high school. So it's like did you like always knew like growing up like you were particularly excelling in art classes and you just wanted to pursue art education, or
Um, Honestly, for as long as I can remember, I think my goal was to always go into something creative. I grew up doing a lot of different forms of arts, like visual and performing. Like I was a dancer for a
mm,
big part of my life. So it was gonna be something very like non-conventional and creative. And I think if I had stayed in Singapore, I honestly would have tried to get into SOTA. I think that would have been the route. Because when I was very young, I still took like those like RC like art classes
mm,
like in
mm.
my CC and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, I think I would have ended up here no matter what.
Yeah, I think for Singaporeans who are pursuing the art education, they'll go to like SOTA first, then they'll go to LaSalle, and maybe they'll go overseas. So yeah, I think you mentioned like growing up, you always wanted to be something unconventional. You were not that usual kid that is always going to be studying very studious of like science or whatever, or maybe math. So you always knew. So it's more or less you always knew you were going to shy away from the conventional education, right?
Yeah, because I was just always very drawn to it, and it was like a very natural calling to me, I think.
So maybe it's like when you were pursuing your art stuff, like in like your dance or something, were your parents supportive? Like I think in Asian parents, like they want their children to be particularly good in like math and science or like English writing, and like were your parents supportive, like for you pursuing the art route and like going to fashion school and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm actually very grateful to have had a lot of support from my immediate family. Um, I think also because the way that my parents were raised, like they were also raised to be very open. So they were given a lot of choice as they were growing up. So that
Mm,
naturally was like thrown down towards me. and how they raised me. Yeah, they didn't really have much expectations in terms of like I had to excel in science or go into maths or whatever. They just wanted me to pick something and work hard at it.
Something that
So
you like
yeah.
and you know like you can pursue, and I think it's really important to have support of family and friends in like the art school. Of course, as I mentioned, it's not very conventional. Like
Hmm.
most people will say, okay, just take it as a hobby and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's important to have the support, and I'm glad that you had the support, and like your parents, like you mentioned, they're more open, and like it's maybe they just want you to be doing something that you like rather than something that yeah, it's something that you like is yeah.
Right.
So like you said, you were in Boston and then you landed in New York. So may I ask why did you choose Parsons particularly? Like is it because you're already based in New York at that time, or was it your dream school? Was it a designer that always went to Parsons? And yeah, why Parsons in general?
I knew I wanted to be in New York. So at the time that I was applying for college, I was
Mm,
actually not living in a city. I was living like slightly outside of Washington, D.C. And that was like a really big change for me because I've always grown up in a very like metropolitan urban space. Like I went from Singapore to Boston to this like small town
mm,
for
mm.
high school. So I felt very bored there. And I knew I wanted to be back in like somewhere very fast paced. And New York is like very is where that happens.
Yeah.
And for fashion, that is sort of the place that you need to be as well. In terms of Parsons specifically, I ended up choosing Parsons because of the way its curriculum was structured. I like how experimentative the school is and how creative that they or like how they focus more on like the creative aspect of fashion rather than just teaching technical skills
Mm.
because I didn't want it to feel like I'm just going to trade school for 4 years. I really wanted somewhere that I could do a lot of interdisciplinary studies, and I felt that with that curriculum was what I could best get the most out of it.
So like you went to CSM for like a semester. So comparison to CSM and Parson, what is the is there much of a difference between the educational like you mentioned Parson is more they'll actually be more creative and rather than the tech. Of course, there's emphasis on technical side, but it's more like letting you be more creative. Like I saw your work where you sewed feathers and onto a dress. Yeah. So is there a difference in Parsons and CSM's educational, like what do you feel is the biggest difference when you went there and they came back to Parsons?
I think CSM was actually very different in the way they approach design and how they taught their students to design. CSM was very much so like process and research based. And if like before entering CSM, I thought Parsons was a very conceptual school. But when
Hmm.
I got to CSM, I was completely like blown out of the water by how like creative everyone at CSM was. Like there was no sense of practicality. Like that was not a priority for them
Hmm.
when it came to design. They were so open, and their tutors at CSM were also very encouraging and was always pushing like students to go very unconventionally with their designs. So I think in that aspect, it kind of put Parsons like to like respective scale for me because I always thought that I was a very like conceptual designer until I got to CSM and it
Hmm.
like changed my point of view.
Hmm. So moving on, like, so how I found about you is like I watch your YouTube videos. So maybe
Mm-hmm.
I could ask you is like, why do you decide to like document your experience at Parson? Was it like to just put your work out there? I think it worked, like your work was out there, or was it like for memory's sake, or yeah, what you just say is like you just wanted to document your life and because sometimes when you record yourself and you have to do editing, it takes a lot of time and yeah, so maybe why did you decide to ultimately decide to document your life as a Parsons?
Um, well, it was a little bit of both. Like you said, it was partially me documenting my time
Hmm.
at school, but also it was a way for me to like have outreach in the community and industry. Social media is a very powerful
Mm.
tool for all creators right now. And I felt that there weren't as many people doing YouTube or long form content in comparison to people doing like TikTok or Instagram.
Mm.
So I wanted to take that route in a more strategic sense. But also, I at that time when I started my YouTube, I was a freshman in Parsons,
Mm.
so I had a lot of like free time essentially because coursework was still pretty light, and I just wanted to learn a new skill. So that was kind of like what started it all, I think.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it's like social media now. It's like so important to get your work out there. I think I saw like, do you know who's Fashion Roadman? It's like a
Mm-hmm.
yeah. He mentioned about how young fashion students they should post their work more on social media and just put their work out there. And who knows, like opportunity might come. And yeah, so I think it's very important to be more like social media. And you mentioned it's also like you're trying to get into the industry, and it's just a better way to step into the industry and like get your work more out there, right?
Mm-hmm. Of course.
So like when you were filming in class, did your classmates like give you any weird looks and stuff oh my God, why is this girl recording herself like sewing? Before she's sewing, she's setting her camera up, and yeah, or is it like normal to you, like you don't really care, you just want to document you just you're sewing and you just take another 5 seconds to set up the camera.
Actually, when I first started, I was quite self-conscious
Yeah,
about
you're right.
it.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
I was a bit worried that people would like judge me or
Yeah.
like think that I'm a poser. But eventually I realized that people didn't really care or notice. And I feel like to this day, like even most of my friends still don't know that I like have a YouTube channel because
Mm.
I was like pretty like not
Low
secretive,
key.
but I was very
Low
low
key.
key about it. Yeah. I think it was definitely because I didn't like make it into my personality. It was just like something I did on the side. So I eventually like grew to just enjoy the process of doing it for myself and not having this pressure of like performing
Mm.
for others. So yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just like the first step is always the hardest. Like once you like got more comfortable recording, you just switch on. And then you don't really speak much in class. Like when you're recording, it's just you sewing or drafting.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, if my classmate is gonna say something, then so be it. But I'm not doing anything. I'm just recording myself, like drafting and sewing.
Yeah,
Mm.
exactly. And I feel like a lot of people document their process
Mm.
anyways. Like
Like being
it's
in
just like
business
they
school or whatever,
yeah.
everyone is documenting. It's just getting to utilize social media more wisely and just to show people behind the scenes of what it's like to be like a fashion student or what's like to be a accounting student. Like everyone is doing it. So I don't think it's a particularly like fashion students are doing it. So yeah. So speaking about that, fashion school, right? So I see like sometimes you record yourself like eating very late dinners or like staying behind in studio for a very long time. Would you say you still enjoy fashion school besides all these like uh tight deadlines, and like I think the workloads of art students are very heavy. It's not like a business
Mhm.
school where you're like, okay, let me finish my homework today and then I can have the rest of the night off. You are constantly thinking about what am I supposed to do the next project and what can I improve on my sewing. So would you say you still enjoy fashion school? Like I know there are parts that are hard, but in general, you still enjoy fashion school?
Um I think I I don't know if it's so much so that I still enjoy the schooling aspect of it.
Mm.
But I do think it has helped me appreciate the craft a lot more. And like every time I'm like pushing myself to like do very like insane pieces or I'm working very late, it feels very like satisfying to me because it
Mm.
feels like I'm getting stuff done. And I don't know, I think at the end of the day, it's really comes down to how passionate someone is. And for me, like I'm always going to be thinking about what I'm doing or what my next project is. So, regardless of the workload from school or not, I think I will always have that pressure on myself to be constantly producing work. And if you want to enter this industry, that is like
Mm,
realistically the mindset that you need to succeed. I think in terms of like the actual schooling structure, I think because I'm entering my final year, so I
yeah,
can look back a bit and like kind of reflect. I think that the structure of school isn't always necessary or not always the most helpful, but I definitely think it helps build discipline. So I do appreciate that. I can't say that I like it or dislike it. So yeah.
there's no like dream school or like that. Sometimes you feel like the structure is not working, and yeah, I think in fashion romance he also say like to be a fashion design student you can't just say, okay, I love fashion now, so let me go to fashion school. So you really have to have a very unique point of view, or you really have to really want it so badly to succeed. So I think fashion school, especially in Parsons, is one of the leading schools. It gives you that industry not links, and like mentioned, maybe the structure might be not everyone will appreciate the structure, but I think in fashion school it's just uh there's room for improvements, and I think students still ultimately benefit. And like I think you say you don't know whether you still enjoy fashion school. It's like uh you might but you still benefit from it, and it's like at the end of the day you just need to get it over and done with it. Everyone's like it can be a normal degree that you get at the end of the day.
Yeah. I think it's just like all like your purpose and your mindset really. Like what the like how much you can make out of it, I think.
So speaking about that, so maybe you can share more. What is the hardest part about fashion school? Is it uh like mentally, physically, or both? So what's the hardest part about fashion school? Like besides its structure that you might not feel it's very beneficial, like what's the hardest part about fashion school?
Um, of course there's like the physical aspect. Like fashion as a industry is very laborious and very exploitive.
Mm,
And it's actually quite unhealthy, like for your body. Like I feel like every
mm,
like designer or like art student you talk to, they always say like, "Oh, I like slept like 3 hours last night." Like
yeah.
it's quite a normal lifestyle for us at this point, which is very unhealthy. But I think the hardest is probably the mindset, like the mental stress and the mental like weight of having to succeed and perform well because fashion is such a competitive field and it's so subjective, and to not feel validated in a work that you have poured so much time and effort and care and love into is quite disheartening. And because fashion or like any sort of artistic field, you don't see your growth in a linear form. So
Mm.
it's very hard to track progress. So it can be very like discouraging at times. And yeah, it's like sometimes you do feel a bit like, why am I putting myself through all this
Why
hardship?
am I doing this? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm. So, mm, give me a moment. Sorry.
No, so you're good.
So you mentioned about maybe getting recognition is like you say it's not linear growth, and maybe only one piece of the work that you put out might be appreciated when you have done all this other 20 of. I think it's becoming to the point where they said young designers, it's normal not to be putting on like the best work that they have, because it's like there's growth to it. So your first maybe two collection might not be the best, but your third collection might be the one that gives you the attention and opportunity. So yeah, I think it's just like just have to keep creating and uh learning and improving. And yeah, but of course you say sometimes you feel like the work that you do is very good, but it's subjective. And
Hmm.
yeah, so yeah. Okay. So that comes to the big question. So at the end of the day, would you recommend someone to go to fashion school?
Uh, okay, so I this is kind of a weighted question. Like
Yeah, it's always on
I
like fashion students like YouTube videos, like on uni videos, like is would you recommend someone to go to fashion school? Yeah.
Yeah. I can't say I can't necessarily say yes or no because
Mm,
everyone's situation is very different. And I think it depends on the individual and what they want to get out of going to fashion school. I think some people will find it very beneficial and some can just like forego it. For me, I think like looking back, like even after I graduate, I will still be very grateful that I went to fashion school
mm,
because I think it was a time that was very helpful in my growth as a designer. Because when you're at school and you're a student, a lot more people are more willing to help you, and you are given a lot more resources than you would if you were just trying to start out by yourself. And especially when you are at a school like Parsons with
mm,
a very like strong name, like that notoriety will get you like will open many doors for you. But I think like it's not necessary to go to fashion school if you want to get into the industry. It just like depends on which part of the industry you would like to go into.
mm. So I think like well, I will quote Fashion Roadman again. He says like prestigious schools like Parsons or CSM, that's where the large fashion houses uh hire these young designers. So yeah, I think
Mm.
you mentioned is like what's your end goal like? Do you want to work for a big brand or you want to start your own brand? And that's when you can decide on whether fashion school is suitable for you. So will you say if like your end goal is to maybe just start your own brand, you could just forgo fashion school?
Um, you could. I think it's like you could swing either way. I think fashion school works very well if you're still not very sure on what you want to
Mm,
do. Um, because also, like, keeping in mind that in the US, like, most people are entering school like right after high school. So they go from high school straight to uni. So everyone is still quite young. Like, the
mm,
demographic at Parsons is quite young. Um, so we're at that stage in our life that we're not very stable in any aspect. We're not financially stable. We're not like independent yet. We don't really know what we want to do. And just like any other like higher education system, I think fashion school is a good place and space to figure that out for yourself and what you want to take your career to. But I think if you are already very established in what you want to do, you have a very
mm,
strong aesthetic, you have a clear idea of what you would like your business to look like, whether it be like you're starting your own or you have goals to work for like a certain company. I don't think you have to. Um, like I said, I went to school for like the extra support and the resources,
mm.
and of course, like the name that it comes from.
So the structure that you didn't really like, it does have its own benefits of you going to fashion school and having the teachers to really guide you and the machines, the facilities at fashion school and yeah, that's where you can still benefit from fashion school, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So
But like
that
with
so
everything, it's like good and bad, you know.
there's no clear cut like answers like should you go to fashion school? It's like yeah, there's no clear cut answer to that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so like speaking about Singapore and US, so what do you think about the fashion scene in Singapore is like compared to US? Like when you come back home like to Singapore on like summer breaks or like when you had time off and yeah, so what do you think about the fashion scene in Singapore is like compared to the US?
Um, I think in Singapore, like what I see is that it's still very like generic,
Mm,
very like commercial, fast fashion kind of styles. I don't see Singapore as having a strong identity in terms of
mm,
its fashion style. I feel like compared to the US, especially in New York, where everyone is so expressive with
mm,
their dressing. Going back to Singapore, it's always like I feel like I see the same like few outfits. It's always like t-shirt and shorts and like flip-flops. But I think that is definitely like the older, like maybe from millennials up.
mm,
But I think in the last few like 5 years or so, I have been seeing some like shifts in the younger generation and
Yeah.
how they dress. I think with like the Korean, like Japanese
Mm.
wave going through, I see like a lot more of those like styles being present in youth culture. Um, but again, it's not very like individualistic. I think it's still everyone is just picking a trend and following it. So I do wish Singapore was more like open to more experimentation in terms of fashion.
I think it's because of the weather itself in Singapore. You can't be wearing like a leather jacket and stuff like that. It's compared to
Yeah,
like New York, yeah.
definitely so. But also like you see like many European countries that are also very warm. Like Italy is also quite hot like most
Mm.
times of the year, but you still see a lot more variation in how people are dressing there. There is like an identity in their culture, and I feel like there's a lack of that in Singapore. I think also it kind of has to do with what the nation is like prioritizing. Like
Mm.
I feel like Singaporeans really prioritize efficiency
Finance,
and
finance.
like yeah, like productivity and like efficiency. So it's like any sort of like impractical matters is like secondary and like non-essential. So it's quite sad to see that there is a lack of that creative like expression.
Mm. So like you have interned in New York, you went for events, so is you definitely get more opportunities in New York compared to Singapore, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think in Singapore it's quite like if you want to apply for a design job, it's not much brands out here that are hiring. And compared to New York, you can like go for internships and help out brands or go for like help out for like New York Fashion Week. And yeah, so I think Singapore still has like, although there's the art culture, they're trying to promote the art culture. I think in the US, like you mentioned, it's more established. And yeah, New York Fashion Week has been going on for many years and stuff like that. Mm.
Mm-hmm.
So speaking about AI, I think AI is a topic that I really want to discuss. So in like fashion industry or in fashion school, is like AI like a thing? Like will AI like can replace designers in the future or like stuff like that? So maybe you can, do you have a little insight about AI in fashion?
Yeah, so I think up until like maybe 1 or 2 years ago,
Mm,
I think most like designers and creators felt very secure in their position versus in terms of like if they will get taken over by AI.
mm,
Because we always were being told like creative jobs will never be taken over by robots and computers because
mm,
you need the authentic like creative thought to be done manually. Like you need that human touch essentially that
mm,
AI is missing. But I think the issue with AI in fashion right now is that it is becoming so easily accessible to designers who are trying to commercialize their products. And with that, it takes away from the creative aspect of fashion or any form of art in itself. So I am quite worried about the future of any sort of art field with AI coming up. Like, and AI is getting really, really
mm.
powerful
It's
and
really
good
good.
at
Yeah. Yeah.
replicating. Like even so, even to the point where sometimes I can't even tell if something is AI or human made. And I think it's like quite sad that we are in the stage of our lives that any sort of content we come across, we have to verify if it's AI or human generated. Um, but yeah, sort of going back in terms of like AI and fashion, I feel that it is quite like a slap in the face to me personally because I take a lot of ownership in terms of my craftsmanship
Mm,
and process when I'm designing or doing anything like in the arts. So to have AI completely automate the process and create like slop and taking over opportunities from designers who can do these roles so much better and for like such like less resources and in a more sustainable practice is so offensive to me because it's like we are already such an exploited industry and group
mm,
of people And it's like now we don't even have the platform to do it, and we are like fighting against like these robots that are trained to be better than us. So yeah.
But could you like use like AI does not replace your work, but instead could is there instances where you feel like you can use AI to supplement your work rather than being replaced? It's like could it help in your, like example, the slot process or like the pattern making process? Can AI be used to further supplement your work rather than replace it?
I mean, like, definitely, yes. I think AI can be useful when done correctly and
Mm,
ethically. Um, but then it sort of like opens up a big rabbit hole because then like people will say like, oh, if I can just do it for this, then like what's the harm in doing it for one more thing? So it's like if
over
everyone
reliant
is
on it.
yeah, everyone is so dependent on it, then it's like it just keeps snowballing. And I feel that we are lacking like integrity and control over our like AI consumption and usage.
I think art is a craft, and like to like have robots or like to have AI to replace it is very like you mentioned, you lack the human touch, and but nowadays the AI is so powerful itself that you can't even tell like is this done by human or is it AI or robot. So yeah. Okay, so could you share a little bit more about your latest project about the perfume line? So like why a perfume project and not something like clothing related, or you just wanted to experiment? So could you talk a little bit more about your latest perfume fragrance project?
Yeah, so I recently just launched my
Mm,
brand, Studio ZZE. And I just launched the perfume, like which is our household like scent for
mm,
the brand. I chose to do perfume because I've always been interested in it. And I didn't do it as a sidestep away from fashion. If anything, it is an integration into what
mm,
I hope to do in the future with my clothing and the brand itself. So, what I'm doing with Orchis Smoke, which is the name of the
mm.
scent,
Okay, so
it's essentially a brand building like aspect of what I would like this world that I'm creating to grow into. Um, Fashion and fragrance go hand in hand. Like you can
mm,
see so many like big
Chanel, Tom Ford,
Chanel
yeah.
exactly. Like they have so many like there are so many brands that use fragrance as an aspect of pulling in more customers and build and driving that story of their brand to the public. So that was my strategy in doing it. I had been developing this scent for a little over a year now.
Mm,
So it actually started with a school project, and I kept like developing it until like I felt that it was ready to be shared. And I chose to do it at this point because like I said, I'm going into my senior year, and for senior year we're essentially creating a capstone or a thesis
mm,
collection.
Benefit.
And with that collection I would like to build on that for what I would like the brand to be. So it is essentially like this perfume is like the starting point for all that growth.
Mm. So speaking about like you developing the perfume as an arm for your brand in the future, so the future of Jodi, so will you start, it's more likely you'll start your own brand rather than working for a brand, or
Yeah. I think at least when I first graduate, it's quite likely that I will have to work with another brand
mm,
first, just to get some like footing in terms of like my experience. And also, I think like there's no like what's the word? There's no like shame in like not going straight into your own brand. If anything, I think it's quite beneficial to work for other companies while you can and have the opportunity to learn under someone else before you
mm,
like make mistakes that will cost you down the line. So while I'm still like freshly like in the industry, I would like to use those first few years to continue honing my skills. And while I'm doing that, I would like to continue developing the brand until I am ready to like fully go like all into it.
yeah, I think that's a wise move because like young designers, you still figuring out yourself and you're building collections. So I think it's great that you can learn under someone else. So do you have a brand in mind that you want to work for, or like
Uh, they're like there's so many brands I would love to work
maybe you can
for.
name one or two, like one or two brands that you would like to work for?
Um, I really like Dries Van Noten.
Greece.
Um, Comme des Garçons is also like really up there as well. Yeah, I think like those two are like what I would like those two are like dream positions. I would love to work under like brands that are so playful and experimental and
Mm.
eclectic.
So that comes to the final question of this podcast today. So, what's the one most important piece of advice you'll give someone applying to fashion school?
Mm, I think it's really important to ask yourself if you're really in it to
Mm.
do it. I think like when you're starting out, fashion school can seem like it's just like a lot of fun and it's like very romanticized and it
Mm.
is very fun, of course. But I think a lot of people when they first enter fashion school, they don't realize how much work it is and how much work it will be after you graduate. Like the work doesn't stop after you graduate, essentially. If
Mm.
anything, it gets more and
Tougher.
more.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think like most people enter thinking, oh, I'm just gonna go to school and then build my brand immediately. Like it's there are a lot more steps and consideration in taking that route than one might think. And it takes a lot of will and a lot of like grit, I think.
Yeah,
So
so physically and mentally, you must be ready for fashion school.
yeah, you must really be willing to like give everything for it, I think.
Mm. And not to
Like
mention, like
uh,
you said, until you're gonna stay until three, you're gonna have 3 hours of sleep, and
yeah, and also fashion school is also very expensive. So
mm.
I think like keeping that in mind, fashion is a very expensive industry
Mm.
and the return rate is not very good.
Yeah.
So like don't go into fashion for the money. Like that should be the last priority, I think. Like you really have to do it for like your interest and like genuine like passion for it.
Mm.
You cannot succeed based on like other motives.
Okay, so thank you, Jody, so much for sharing today, and we hope to see more of your final collection in your final year.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.